The invasion begins. Captain Orin Thorne gazed out the viewport of the Avalon, his mind heavy with the weight of what was to come. The distant stars seemed so peaceful, oblivious to the chaos that was about to unfold. But Orin knew better. The Chikar, the most feared species in the galaxy, had set their sights on Earth. Known as the apex predators of the universe, the Chikar had conquered countless worlds, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. And now they were coming for humanity. Orin's ship, the Avalon, was one of the most advanced in the United Earth Fleet, equipped with the latest in human technology. But even with their cutting-edge weapons and shields, he knew the odds were against them. The Chikar had technology far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their warriors nearly invincible. Yet, Orin couldn't shake the feeling that there was something they were missing, something that could turn the tide of the battle in humanity's favor. As the Avalon approached the edge of the solar system, Orin's thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of a massive Chikar warship on the tactical display. The ship was nearly 3 times the size of the Avalon, bristling with weapons and armor that seemed impenetrable. Orin's heart pounded in his chest as the reality of the situation sank in. The Chikar were here, and they were ready for war. "Captain, we have multiple Chikar ships on an intercept course," Lieutenant Sarah Reeve reported from her station, her voice calm but tinged with urgency. "They'll be in firing range in less than 5 minutes." Orin nodded, his mind racing as he considered their options. Prepare the shields and charge the railguns. We need to hold them off long enough for the rest of the fleet to regroup. Sarah's fingers flew over the controls as she relayed the orders to the crew. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the crew prepared for the inevitable clash. Orin could see the fear in their eyes, but he also saw something else: determination. They knew what was at stake, and they were ready to fight with everything they had. The first volley of plasma fire erupted from the Chikar warship, slamming into the Avalon's shields with a force that shook the entire ship. Orin gritted his teeth as the shield indicator on the tactical display flickered, struggling to absorb the impact. The Chikar were testing their defenses, probing for weaknesses. But Orin had no intention of letting them find any. "Return fire," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Target their weapon systems. We need to level the playing field." The Avalon's railguns roared to life, unleashing a barrage of kinetic rounds that streaked across the void toward the Chikar ship. The rounds impacted with a brilliant flash of light, but when the glare faded, the Chikar ship remained, its shields barely dented. Orin cursed under his breath. He had expected the Chikar to be tough, but this was something else entirely. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Chikar flagship," Sarah said, her brow furrowing as she deciphered the message. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." Orin's jaw clenched. He knew what surrender would mean: enslavement at best, annihilation at worst. Humanity had fought too hard to survive to simply roll over and accept defeat. No, they would fight, no matter the cost. "Open a channel," Orin said, his voice cold and resolute. "I want to speak to their commander." Sarah nodded and tapped a few keys, opening a channel to the Chikar flagship. A moment later, the holographic image of a Chikar warlord appeared on the bridge, towering over Orin and his crew. The warlord's scaled skin glistened in the dim light, and his eyes glowed with a malevolent intelligence. "I am Warlidek Salvek of the Chikar Dominion," the warlord snarled, his voice a deep rumble that reverberated through the bridge. "Your species is weak, unworthy of existence. Surrender now, and your death will be swift. Resist, and you will suffer." Orin met Salvek's gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "This is Captain Orin Thorne of the United Earth Fleet. We will not surrender. Earth is our home, and we will defend it with our lives." Salvek's lips curled into a cruel smile. "So be it, human. Prepare to witness the true power of the Chikar." The transmission ended, and the hologram flickered out of existence. Orin took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He knew this battle would be unlike any other humanity had faced, but he also knew that they had something the Chikar could never understand, a fierce will to survive, to protect their home and their loved ones. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Orin ordered, his voice carrying a steely determination. We're not going down without a fight. The Avalon veered sharply to the left as the Chikar warship opened fire again, plasma bolts streaking past them as they dodged and weaved through the onslaught. Orin's eyes were locked on the tactical display, searching for any opening, any weakness they could exploit. And then he saw it, a brief flicker in the Chikar's shields as they adjusted to the Avalon's maneuvers. It was barely noticeable, but it was there, a vulnerability. Target the shield generators, Orin commanded, his voice filled with urgency. All railguns fire at will. The Avalon's weapons rolled to life once more, pouring everything they had into the Chikar's shields. The barrage was relentless, and slowly, the flicker in the shields grew, spreading until the entire shield network began to waver. "Captain, their shields are failing," Sarah exclaimed, her voice filled with hope. Orin allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Good. Now, let's show them what humanity is capable of." The Avalon unleashed a final, devastating volley of railgun fire, punching through the weakened Chikar shields and slamming into the warship's hull. Explosions rippled across the Chikar vessel as its systems failed one by one. But Orin knew this was only the beginning. The Chikar were not so easily defeated, and this battle was far from over. But for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity had drawn blood, and now they would fight with everything they had to protect their home. The unlikely alliance. The victory against the first Chikar warship had bolstered the morale of the United Earth Fleet, but Captain Orin Thorne knew that this was just the beginning. The Chikar were a relentless species, and they would not stop until Earth was under their control. But humanity was not alone in this fight. In the weeks leading up to the invasion, Earth had received a mysterious transmission from an unknown alien race. The message was brief and cryptic, but its meaning was clear. They offered their assistance in the coming war. Orin had been skeptical at first, but now, with the full force of the Chikar bearing down on them, he knew they had no choice but to accept the offer. The Avalon had set a course for the coordinates provided in the transmission, deep within the uncharted regions of space. As they approached the designated location, the crew's anticipation grew. They had no idea who, or what, they would find waiting for them. "Captain, we're coming up on the coordinates," Sarah reported, her eyes scanning the sensors for any sign of the mysterious allies. Orin leaned forward in his chair, his gaze fixed on the viewscreen. The void of space stretched out before them, empty and silent. For a moment, he wondered if this was all a trap, some kind of Chikar deception to lure them into a vulnerable position. But then the space before them rippled, and a massive structure materialized out of the darkness. It was like nothing Orin had ever seen, a sprawling space station, its architecture alien and otherworldly. The station was covered in strange, pulsing lights, and Orin could see ships docked along its exterior, ships that were unlike anything in the United Earth Fleet. "What the hell is that?" one of the crew members muttered, his voice filled with awe. Orin didn't answer. He was just as mesmerized by the sight as the rest of his crew. The station was a marvel of engineering, far beyond anything humanity had ever constructed. But the question remained, who had built it? "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the station," Sarah said, her voice tinged with excitement. "It's in the same language as the previous message." "Put it through," Orin ordered, his heart pounding in his chest. The viewscreen flickered, and the image of an alien appeared before them. The creature was tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Its eyes were large and expressive, filled with intelligence and wisdom. When it spoke, its voice was melodic and calm. "Greetings, Captain Orin Thorne of Earth," the alien said, inclining its head in a gesture of respect. "I am Zale of the Exaltan Collective. We have been observing your species for some time, and we have decided to offer our assistance in your struggle against the Chikar. Orin's mind raced as he processed the alien's words. The Axaltan Collective. He had never heard of them before, but if they had the technology to build a station like this, then they were far more advanced than humanity. Why are you helping us? Orin asked, his voice cautious. What do you stand to gain from this? Zell's expression softened, and there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. The Chikar are a threat to all sentient life in the galaxy. They conquer and destroy without mercy, leaving nothing but ruin in their wake. We have seen countless civilizations fall to their might, and we cannot allow it to continue. Your species, Captain, has shown resilience and courage. We believe that with our combined strength, we can push back the Chikar and protect all life from their tyranny. Orin was silent for a moment, considering the alien's words. This was an opportunity he couldn't afford to pass up, but he also knew that alliances were never without complications. What do you need from us? He asked, his tone businesslike. Zale smiled, a gesture that seemed almost human. We ask for nothing more than your cooperation and trust. Together, we will form a united front against the Chikar. Our technology, combined with your determination, will give us the edge we need to turn the tide of this war. Orin nodded, his decision made. We'll work together. But understand this, we won't be anyone's pawns. Humanity will fight for its survival on its own terms. Zell's expression remained warm. Of course, Captain. We seek partners, not subordinates. Now, let us begin. Time is short, and the Chikar will not wait. The transmission ended, and the view screen returned to the image of the alien station. Orin felt a mixture of hope and unease. The Axaltan seemed sincere, but he knew that alliances with alien species were always fraught with risks. Still, with the Chikar bearing down on them, they needed all the help they could get. Prepare the ship for docking, Orin ordered. We're going to see what our new friends have to offer. As the Avalon maneuvered toward the station, Orin couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something much larger than just a battle for Earth. The galaxy was teetering on the edge of chaos, and humanity was about to be thrust into the center of it all. But one thing was certain, they would fight with everything they had. The Chikar would learn that humanity was not so easily defeated. Secrets of the Axaltan. The docking bay of the Axaltan station was a marvel of alien engineering. The bay itself was massive, with sleek, curving walls that glowed with a soft blue light. As the Avalon settled into its designated berth, Captain Orin Thorne could feel the slight hum of the station's energy field enveloping the ship. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced, calm, almost soothing. Docking complete, Captain, Sarah reported, glancing at the ship's systems. The Axaltan have extended an umbilical for us to board the station. Orin nodded, his mind already racing with questions. What kind of technology had the Axaltan developed? How had they avoided the Chikar's wrath for so long? And most importantly, what did they know about the enemy that humanity didn't? Lieutenant Reeve, you're with me, Orin ordered, standing up from his command chair. Major Carson, you have the bridge. Aye, Captain, Major Carson replied, taking Orin's place at the command console. Orin and Sarah made their way to the airlock, where a team of Marines was already assembled, ready to accompany them onto the alien station. As the airlock cycled open, they were greeted by a group of Zaltan, their tall, graceful forms draped in flowing robes that shimmered with iridescent colors. Zale, the Axaltan who had spoken to them earlier, stepped forward, his expression calm and welcoming. Welcome aboard the Aegis, he said, gesturing for them to follow. Please, allow us to show you the heart of our station. Orin exchanged a glance with Sarah, then nodded. Lead the way. The Axaltan led them through the station, their movements fluid and precise. Orin couldn't help but marvel at the architecture. Every surface seemed to be alive with energy, pulsing in time with some unseen rhythm. The station was unlike anything he had ever seen, a testament to the Uxultan's advanced technology. As they walked, Orin tried to glean as much as he could from their surroundings. The station was bustling with activity, but it was clear that the Uxultan operated on a level far beyond anything humanity had achieved. The walls were lined with strange devices, humming with power, and the air was filled with a low, melodic hum that seemed to resonate through their very bones. Finally, they arrived at a large chamber, the walls adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they looked at them. In the center of the room was a massive holographic display, projecting a detailed map of the galaxy. Orin recognized Earth's solar system, but what caught his attention was the multitude of red markers spread throughout the map, Chikar-controlled space. "This is our command center," Zale explained, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "From here, we monitor the movements of the Chikar across the galaxy. As you can see, their influence is vast, but there are still pockets of resistance, worlds that have managed to hold out against their onslaught." Orin studied the map, his mind racing. The Chikar's empire was even larger than he had feared, stretching across vast swaths of the galaxy. But the red markers weren't the only ones on the map. Scattered among them were blue markers, representing the Uxultan and their allies. It was clear that the war was far from over, but the odds were daunting. "What can you tell us about the Chikar?" Orin asked, turning to Zale. "How have they managed to conquer so much of the galaxy?" Zale's expression darkened, and there was a flicker of something akin to pain in his eyes. "The Chikar are relentless. They are a warrior race, bred for combat and conquest. Their technology is advanced, yes, but their true strength lies in their single-minded determination to dominate all other species. They believe themselves to be the ultimate life form, destined to rule the galaxy." Orin felt a chill run down his spine. The Chikar's arrogance and brutality were well known, but hearing it from someone who had fought against them for so long brought the reality of the situation into sharp focus. "But there is more," Sal continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The Chikar are not the only threat. There is something else, something darker that drives them. We do not fully understand it, but we have seen glimpses in our encounters with their leaders. It is as if they are being guided by a force beyond their control." Orin's eyes narrowed. "A force? What do you mean?" Zell hesitated, as if unsure how much to reveal. "We have reason to believe that the Chikar are being influenced, manipulated by an ancient power that predates even our own civilization. We do not know its true nature, but it is clear that it has its own agenda, and the Chikar are merely pawns in its game." Orin's mind reeled at the implications. An ancient power manipulating the Chikar. The thought was terrifying, but it also presented a potential opportunity. If they could somehow disrupt this influence, perhaps they could weaken the Chikar from within. "What can we do to stop them?" Sarah asked, her voice reflecting the same determination that Orin felt. Zale sighed, a weary sound that spoke of millennia of struggle. "The path will not be easy. The Chikar are formidable on their own, and whatever force is driving them is even more dangerous. But there may be a way. We have been developing a weapon, something that could sever the connection between the Chikar and their unseen masters, but we need your help to complete it." Orin felt a spark of hope. This was it, the edge they needed. But he also knew that such a weapon would come with great risks. "What do you need from us?" Zell's gaze met Orin's, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "We need a test subject, someone who can withstand the weapon's effects and provide the final data we need to complete it. We have tried with our own people, but the results have been catastrophic. Your species, however, possesses the resilience that we believe could make the difference." Orin's heart sank. He knew what Zell was asking. He needed someone to volunteer for a mission that could very well end in death. But if this weapon could give them a chance to stop the Chikar, it was a risk they had to take. "I'll do it," Sarah said suddenly, stepping forward. Her voice was steady, but Orin could see the resolve in her eyes. "No," Orin said firmly, turning to her. "I can't ask you to do this." "You're not asking," Sarah replied, her tone equally firm. I'm volunteering. You know I'm the best candidate for this. Let me do my part, Captain. Orin hesitated, his mind torn. He didn't want to risk losing one of his best officers, but he also knew that Sarah was right. She was the best person for the job. Very well, Orin said finally, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. But know this, you're not going in alone. We'll do everything we can to support you. Zale nodded, his expression somber. Thank you, Lieutenant Reeve. Your bravery will not be forgotten. We will begin preparations immediately. As the Exaltan began their work, Orin couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into the unknown. The stakes had never been higher, and the risks were greater than ever. But for the first time, they had a real chance to turn the tide of the war. And they would take that chance, no matter the cost, into the abyss. Sarah Reeves stood in the Exaltan lab, her gaze fixed on the sleek, silver device that would soon be implanted in her nervous system. The room was sterile, with smooth, white walls and advanced machinery humming softly in the background. The Exaltan scientists moved with purpose, their expressions calm but serious as they prepared for the procedure. Zale stood beside her, his eyes full of concern. Lieutenant Reeve, once the device is activated, you will be linked directly to the energy fields that the Chikar draw from. It is a connection that will be both dangerous and potentially overwhelming. You must remain focused and strong. Sarah nodded, her resolve unshaken. I understand. Just tell me what I need to do. Zale offered a small, reassuring smile. You must allow the device to synchronize with your neural pathways. It will draw power from the same source as the Chikar, but instead of enhancing aggression, it will create a feedback loop, one that we hope will sever their connection to the ancient force that controls them. Orin, standing nearby, clenched his fists, trying to suppress the worry gnawing at his insides. He had already lost too many good people in this war, and the thought of losing Sarah was unbearable. But this was their best shot, and he knew she wouldn't back down. Are you sure about this, Sarah? Orin asked, his voice low. Sarah turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. This is what I signed up for, Captain. If we're going to stop the Chikar, I'll do whatever it takes. Orin nodded, knowing there was no point in arguing. Just come back to us. With a final nod, Sarah lay down on the cold metal table, the Exaltan immediately moving into position around her. They attached a series of sensors to her temples and wrists, each one glowing faintly as they powered up. Zale carefully placed the device, a small, oval-shaped object, at the base of her neck. This will not be painless, Zale warned, his voice gentle. But you are strong. We have faith in you. Sarah closed her eyes, bracing herself as Zale activated the device. A sharp, searing pain shot through her spine, causing her to grit her teeth. She could feel the device burrowing into her nervous system, its tendrils of energy weaving through her body like 1,000 tiny needles. Then suddenly, the pain was gone, replaced by a strange, tingling sensation. It was as if she could feel the very fabric of the universe stretching out before her, an endless web of energy and light. The sensation was both exhilarating and terrifying. We have established the connection, one of the Exaltan scientists reported, their voice distant as Sarah's mind began to drift. Her neural pathways are adapting to the energy field. Sarah felt a surge of power course through her veins, like a wave crashing over her. She struggled to maintain control, her consciousness flickering as the energy threatened to consume her. She could feel the darkness, the ancient force that Zale had spoken of, lurking at the edges of her mind, cold and malevolent. Stay with us, Lieutenant, Zale urged, his voice a lifeline in the storm of power swirling around her. You must focus. Do not let the darkness take hold. Sarah forced herself to concentrate, drawing on every ounce of willpower she had. She visualized the energy flowing through her, imagining it as a river, steady and controlled. Slowly, the chaotic sensations began to settle, the darkness receding as she asserted control. I've got it, she whispered, her voice strained but steady. "I'm in control." Zale let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Good. Now, we must test the device's effect on the Chikar." He gestured to a nearby console, where a holographic display showed a Chikar battleship in orbit around a distant planet. The Exaltan had intercepted a communication from the ship, indicating that its commander was linked to the ancient force. "Lieutenant Reeve, we need you to focus on that ship," Zale instructed. "Channel the energy through the device and direct it toward the Chikar commander. The feedback loop should disrupt their connection." Sarah nodded, her mind already reaching out toward the ship. She could feel the presence of the Chikar commander, a dark, twisted mind fueled by the ancient power. It was like touching a void, cold and endless, but she didn't back away. Instead, she focused on the device, channeling the energy through it and projecting it toward the Chikar. The connection was immediate, a sharp jolt that sent a shockwave through the commander's mind. She could feel his confusion, his sudden loss of control as the feedback loop took hold. "It's working," Sarah said through gritted teeth. "I can feel him weakening." On the display, the Chikar battleship began to drift, its movements erratic. The red markers on the map flickered, indicating a loss of coordination among the Chikar fleet. "Maintain the connection," Zale urged. "We must ensure the severance is complete." But as Sarah pushed harder, the darkness pushed back. She felt it clawing at her mind, trying to reassert its influence. The ancient force was not just a passive entity, it was aware, and it was fighting to maintain control over its pawns. Sweat beaded on Sarah's forehead as she fought to keep the connection stable. She could feel the darkness worming its way into her thoughts, whispering promises of power and dominion. It was tempting, so tempting, but she resisted, clinging to the memory of what they were fighting for. "Captain," Sarah's voice was faint, strained. "I don't know how much longer I can hold it." Orin stepped closer, his heart pounding. "You're doing great, Sarah. Just a little longer. Remember why we're doing this. For Earth, for everyone we've lost." Sarah's breath hitched, the reminder grounding her. She visualized the faces of her fallen comrades, the countless lives that had been lost to the Chikar's onslaught. She couldn't let their sacrifice be in vain. With a final surge of effort, Sarah poured everything she had into the device, channeling the energy with precision and determination. The darkness recoiled, its hold on the Chikar commander shattering as the feedback loop severed the connection. The Chikar battleship on the display went dark, its systems shutting down as the commander's mind was overwhelmed by the sudden loss of the ancient power's influence. The red markers on the map flickered again, this time more pronounced, as other Chikar ships began to experience similar disruptions. "We did it," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible as exhaustion washed over her. The strain of maintaining the connection had taken its toll, and she felt herself slipping into unconsciousness. Zale quickly moved to stabilize her, his hands glowing with a soft light as he used his own energy to ease her pain. "You've done it, Lieutenant. The connection has been severed." Orin let out a breath of relief, his body sagging with a release of tension. "Get her to the med bay," he ordered, his voice thick with emotion. "She needs rest." As the Exaltan carefully lifted Sarah from the table, Orin watched them go, a mixture of pride and fear warring within him. They had taken a crucial step in weakening the Chikar, but the cost had been high, and the war was far from over. But for now, they had a victory, one that gave them a glimmer of hope in the darkness, and they would cling to that hope, no matter what lay ahead. Shadows of the past. Sarah awoke to the steady beeping of medical monitors and the soft hum of the ship's engines. The world around her felt hazy, like she was swimming through fog. As her senses slowly returned, she realized she was lying in a recovery pod in the Exaltan med bay. The sterile white walls and advanced technology were familiar, but the room felt alien, more so than usual. Her mind still buzzed with the lingering effects of the energy she had channeled, and the memory of the darkness that had tried to consume her was fresh. Orin sat by her side, his eyes bloodshot but alert. He straightened as he noticed her stirring, a wave of relief washing over his face. "Sarah, you're awake." Sarah blinked, trying to clear the cobwebs from her mind. What? What happened? Did it work? Orin nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. It worked. The Chikar fleet was thrown into disarray. "We've gained some breathing room, thanks to you." A surge of relief flooded through Sarah, but it was quickly followed by exhaustion. The memory of the darkness, the malevolent force she had confronted, still weighed heavily on her mind. She shivered slightly, the coldness of it lingering in her thoughts. "What about the device?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Is it still active?" Zale entered the room, his calm presence soothing. He approached her bed and began checking the readings on the monitor. "The device is in a dormant state now, Lieutenant. The immediate danger has passed, but we must be cautious. The connection to the ancient force is a volatile one." Sarah nodded, though her thoughts were elsewhere. "Zale, that force, it's not just some mindless power, is it? It felt like it was aware, like it was fighting back." Zale's expression grew somber. "You are correct. The ancient force that the Chikar draw upon is not merely an energy source. It is a consciousness, a dark and ancient one, older than any civilization we know. It seeks control, dominance, and it has been manipulating the Chikar for millennia." Sarah swallowed hard, the implications of Zale's words sinking in. "Then, this war isn't just against the Chikar, it's against that thing." Orin leaned forward, his voice low. "We've suspected as much for some time, but you confirmed it. The Chikar are just pawns, Sarah. That force is the real enemy." A heavy silence fell over the room as they all grappled with the enormity of the situation. The Chikar were already a formidable foe, but if they were being controlled by an ancient, malevolent force, the challenge they faced was far greater than they had imagined. Zale placed a reassuring hand on Sarah's shoulder. "You have done something extraordinary, Lieutenant. By severing the connection, you have shown that it can be weakened, even if only temporarily. This gives us hope." Sarah closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. "But how do we fight something like that? It's not just about defeating the Chikar anymore." Orin looked at Zale, then back at Sarah. "That's what we're trying to figure out. We need more information, more understanding of what we're dealing with. And for that, we need to go deeper into Zoltan history, find out what its force is, where it came from, and how we can destroy it." Zale nodded. "There are ancient records hidden away in the most secure archives of my people. They speak of a time before the Chikar, of an era when this force first made its presence known. But accessing those records will not be easy. They are kept in a place we call the Vault of Shadows, a location known only to the highest elders." Orin's jaw tightened. "Then that's where we need to go." Zale hesitated, his usually calm demeanor wavering. "The Vault of Shadows is not just a repository of knowledge. It is a place of great danger, filled with remnants of the ancient force's influence. Many who have sought its secrets have not returned." Sarah's determination hardened. "We don't have a choice. If we're going to end this war, we need to know what we're up against. We'll face whatever dangers are in that vault." Orin met her gaze, his eyes filled with the same resolve. "You're right. We've come this far. We can't stop now." Zale sighed, knowing there was no dissuading them. "Very well. I will guide you to the Vault of Shadows, but we must prepare carefully. The journey will test us in ways we cannot predict." As the reality of their next mission set in, Sarah's mind drifted back to the encounter with the ancient force. She could still feel its cold presence lurking in the corners of her thoughts, a reminder of the power they were up against. But she pushed the fear aside, focusing instead on the task ahead. They had a chance, a small one, but a chance nonetheless, to end this war, to break the hold of the ancient force and free the Chikar from its influence. It was a daunting task, but Sarah had faced impossible odds before, and she wasn't about to back down now. As she slowly sat up, Orin reached out to steady her. Easy there, you've been through a lot. Take it slow. Sarah gave him a tired smile. No time to rest, Captain. We've got a vault to raid. Orin chuckled softly, though his eyes were still clouded with worry. That's the Sarah I know. But seriously, we need you at full strength for this. We all need to be at our best. Zale stepped back, giving them space. I will make the necessary preparations. We will depart for the Vault of Shadows as soon as you are ready. As Zale left the room, Sarah leaned back against the pillows, closing her eyes for a moment. She could feel the weight of the journey ahead pressing down on her, but there was no room for doubt. The fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Orin stayed by her side, his presence a comforting anchor in the midst of the storm. They had been through so much together, and yet the hardest part was still to come. But as long as they stood together, Sarah knew they had a fighting chance, and for now that was enough. The Vault of Shadows. The Exaltan cruiser glided through the inky blackness of space, heading towards a sector of the galaxy that was rarely spoken of, even among the Exaltan. The journey to the Vault of Shadows had begun, and the weight of their mission hung heavily on the crew. Sarah stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. They were far from any inhabited systems, deep in uncharted space. The emptiness around them was almost oppressive, as if the very void was aware of the dangerous secrets they were seeking. Zale approached her, his expression serious. We will reach the vault in a few hours. Once we enter its perimeter, communication with the outside will be impossible. The vault is protected by ancient technology, designed to isolate it from the rest of the galaxy. Sarah nodded, already bracing herself for what lay ahead. What exactly are we going to find in there? Zale paused, choosing his words carefully. The Vault of Shadows was built by the first Exaltan, long before our civilization became what it is today. It houses relics and knowledge from a time when we were still discovering our place in the universe. But it also contains remnants of the ancient force, artifacts and writings that are infused with its influence. Orin, who had been listening from nearby, joined the conversation. And we're hoping those artifacts will tell us how to defeat this thing. Zale inclined his head. That is the hope. But be warned, the vault is a place of great danger. The ancient force left its mark on everything within, and many who have entered have been lost to its influence. We must proceed with the utmost caution. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. We'll be careful, but we can't let fear stop us. We need to find whatever information we can and get out. Zale gave her a sullen nod. Indeed, I will lead you through the vault, but once we are inside, we must stay together at all costs. The vault has ways of testing those who seek its secrets. As the cruiser neared its destination, the crew prepared for the descent into the vault. Zale briefed Sarah and Orin on the procedures they would need to follow, emphasizing the importance of maintaining focus and resisting any temptations or illusions the vault might present. When they finally arrived, the sight that greeted them was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. The Vault of Shadows was a massive structure, floating in the middle of an asteroid field. It was ancient, its surface marked by countless years of exposure to the elements. The dark, jagged exterior gave it the appearance of a slumbering beast, waiting to be awakened. The cruiser docked with the vault's outer entrance, and the team suited up, readying themselves for the unknown. Sarah, Orin, and Zale stepped into the airlock, the door hissing shut behind them. A moment later, the inner door slid open, revealing a dimly lit corridor that seemed to stretch on endlessly. The air inside the vault was cold and dry, filled with the scent of dust and age. Every step they took echoed eerily off the walls, amplifying the sense of isolation. The corridor was lined with statues of long-forgotten Zoltan warriors, their expressions stern and watchful. "This place gives me the creeps," Orin muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah couldn't disagree. There was something about the vault that felt wrong, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. But she pushed the unease aside, focusing on the mission. Zale led them deeper into the vault, navigating the labyrinthine passageways with practiced ease. The further they went, the more the walls seemed to close in, the air growing thicker with the weight of ancient power. After what felt like hours, they reached a massive chamber, its walls covered in strange, glowing symbols. At the center of the room was a pedestal, upon which rested a large black orb. The orb pulsed with a faint, dark light, casting eerie shadows across the chamber. Zale approached the pedestal cautiously, his eyes fixed on the orb. This is the heart of shadows, the core of the vault's power. It is said to contain the essence of the ancient force, a fragment of its consciousness. Sarah stared at the orb, feeling a strange pull towards it. There was something about the way it glowed, the way it seemed to call out to her, that made it hard to look away. But she forced herself to stay focused. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice tight. Zale hesitated, his hand hovering over the orb. "We need to access the knowledge stored within, but it will not be easy. The orb is guarded by the force itself. To unlock its secrets, we must pass a test." Orin frowned. "What kind of test?" Zale's expression grew grave. "The orb will probe our minds, searching for weakness, fear, and doubt. It will try to break us, to turn us against each other. We must remain strong, united, and true to our purpose. Only then will we gain the knowledge we seek." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the moment of truth. She exchanged a glance with Orin, seeing the same determination mirrored in his eyes. "We're ready," she said, her voice steady. Zale nodded, then placed his hands on the orb. A surge of dark energy rippled through the room, and the glowing symbols on the walls flared to life. The air grew heavy with power, and Sarah felt a pressure building in her mind, as if something was trying to force its way in. She gritted her teeth, focusing on the mission, on the need to protect humanity, to end the war. The pressure intensified, and she could feel the ancient force probing her thoughts, searching for her deepest fears and doubts. Images flashed through her mind, memories of past battles, of friends lost, of moments when she had doubted herself, when she had feared that they would never win. The force seized on those moments, magnifying them, twisting them into something dark and overwhelming. But Sarah fought back, clinging to the knowledge that she was not alone, that she had Orin and Zale by her side. She thought of the people she was fighting for, the billions of lives depending on them. And with that thought, she found the strength to resist. Beside her, Orin and Zale were also struggling, their faces contorted with concentration. But they held firm, refusing to give in to the force's manipulations. The pressure in the room reached a fever pitch, and for a moment, it felt like they would all be crushed under the weight of it. But then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure lifted, and the energy in the room subsided. The orb's dark light dimmed, and the symbols on the walls faded. Zale removed his hands from the orb, breathing heavily. "It is done," he said, his voice strained. "We have passed the test." Sarah exhaled, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. They had made it. Now they would finally learn the truth. As the room returned to its dim, eerie silence, the orb began to emit a soft, rhythmic pulse. Slowly, the dark surface of the orb shifted, revealing a series of glowing runes and symbols that seemed to dance across its surface. Zale stepped back, his eyes fixed on the orb. "The knowledge is being revealed. We must decipher it quickly." Sarah and Orin moved closer, staring at the runes as they tried to make sense of them. The symbols were unfamiliar, alien, but something about them resonated deep within Sarah's mind. As she concentrated, the symbols began to form patterns, and the patterns began to take shape, revealing a message that spoke of an ancient war, a battle between the force they now faced and a coalition of civilizations that had long since fallen. The message was clear. The ancient force could be defeated, but only by harnessing a power equal to its own. The coalition had forged a weapon of immense power, capable of severing the force's connection to the physical realm. But the weapon had been lost, hidden away in a place where even the force could not reach. To find it, they would need to follow a path laid out in the message, a path that would lead them to the weapon and ultimately to the final battle. Sarah's heart raced as she absorbed the information. This was it, the key to ending the war, to defeating the ancient force once and for all. But it would not be easy. The path they had to follow was fraught with danger, and the force would not let them succeed without a fight. She looked at Orin and Zale, seeing the same realization in their eyes. They had found what they came for, but their journey was far from over. "We have the knowledge," Zale said, his voice firm. "Now we must act on it. The path ahead will be perilous, but it is the only way." Sarah nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we'll follow it, no matter what. We'll find this weapon, and we'll end this war." Orin placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip strong and reassuring. "We're with you, Sarah, all the way." As they turned to leave the chamber, the orb's light flickered once more, as if acknowledging their resolve. The vault of shadows had given them what they needed, but it had also marked them, setting them on a course that would decide the fate of the galaxy. With their mission clear, the team made their way back to the cruiser, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The ancient force was powerful, but now they had a chance to fight back, to protect humanity, and to bring peace to the galaxy. The final battle was coming, and they would be ready. The final showdown. The galactic skyline glittered with the flashes of distant stars as the human fleet, led by Admiral Jenna Harrison, prepared for the climactic battle against the remnants of the Koloth Empire. The Koloth, once the feared apex predators of the galaxy, were now cornered and desperate, having been pushed to the brink by humanity's tenacity and ingenuity. Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Liberty's Vanguard, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. The ship, a marvel of human engineering, was bristling with advanced weaponry and defensive systems. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their faces a mixture of determination and fatigue. They knew this was the final confrontation, and every decision could make the difference between victory and defeat. The Koloth fleet, now reduced in number and morale, had retreated to a heavily fortified space station known as the Draconis Bastion, hidden in the asteroid belt of a remote system. The station was a labyrinth of metal and energy shields, designed to withstand even the fiercest of assaults. But Admiral Harrison had a plan that involved leveraging their newfound understanding of Koloth technology to breach the station's defenses. As the human fleet closed in on the Draconis Bastion, the station's defensive systems came online, and a barrage of plasma cannons and energy beams erupted from its surface. The human ships, expertly maneuvered and equipped with the latest countermeasures, deftly avoided the incoming fire. Admiral Harrison watched as her fleet deployed a swarm of advanced drones, their purpose clear: to distract and disable the station's defense systems. The drones buzzed towards the station, unleashing electronic warfare pulses and sending the Koloth defenses into disarray. The energy shields flickered and weakened under the relentless assault. The Koloth defenders, caught off guard by the intensity of the human counterattack, scrambled to recalibrate their systems, but the damage was done. With the shields down, the Liberty's Vanguard and its accompanying ships fired their plasma torpedoes and laser cannons, targeting critical points on the station's hull. The explosions were breathtaking, bright flashes of light and debris as the Koloth defenses buckled under the relentless barrage. But this was not just a show of brute force, it was a calculated, methodical assault designed to break the Koloth's will to fight. Inside the Draconis Bastion, the Koloth commander, General Tarvos, roared in frustration as he watched his empire crumble. He had underestimated the humans, and now, as the station's systems began to fail, he realized the extent of his miscalculation. The Koloth forces were losing control, their once dominant empire on the verge of collapse. Admiral Harrison knew the time had come to strike the final blow. She ordered a full assault, with her fleet's boarding parties preparing to breach the station's interior. The human soldiers, equipped with advanced combat suits and weaponry, launched their assault pods into the heart of the Draconis Bastion. The ensuing battle was fierce. Kolaf warriors, though brave, were overwhelmed by the sheer number and determination of the human invaders. In the midst of the chaos, Admiral Harrison led a team to the command center of the station, where General Exarthos awaited. The Kolaf general, a towering figure with fierce eyes and an air of arrogance, confronted the human admiral with a mixture of defiance and resignation. "You have come far, human," Haxarthos growled, his voice a low rumble. "But this is where your victory ends." Admiral Harrison met his gaze with unyielding resolve. "This ends now. Surrender, and we can avoid further bloodshed." The Kolaf general's eyes flickered with a hint of doubt. He had seen the destruction his people had wrought, and now faced the undeniable truth of their defeat. The humans had proven themselves not just as survivors, but as formidable opponents who had outmaneuvered and outwitted his forces at every turn. With a heavy sigh, General Exarthos lowered his weapon. "Very well, we surrender." The announcement reverberated through the station, and the remaining Kolaf forces laid down their arms. The humans had achieved what many thought impossible. They had defeated the Kolaf Empire and secured a fragile peace. As the Draconis bastion was taken over by human forces, Admiral Harrison stood in the command center, surveying the results of their hard-fought victory. The war was over, but the road to lasting peace would be long and challenging. The humans had shown that they were more than capable of standing against the galaxy's most feared predators, but now it was time to rebuild and forge a new future. The Kolaf, though defeated, were not erased from the galaxy. They would be given a chance to rebuild, to learn from their mistakes. The humans had proven their strength, but they also demonstrated compassion and the will to create a better future for all. As Admiral Harrison looked out at the stars, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new era. The galaxy had been forever changed, and humanity had emerged not only as survivors, but as leaders who had reshaped the balance of power. The final battle was won, but the journey ahead was one of healing and unity. The future was uncertain, but with the lessons learned and the strength displayed, humanity was ready to embrace it. The stars were their canvas, and the universe was theirs to explore. Get